Welcome to our 6th annual Intertwined with the theme of Lost and Found. So we have a beautiful group of storytellers here this evening. My name is Abigail Leader. I am the Director of Experiential Prevention Initiatives with the Office of the Dean of Students and Prevention Services. And Aurora is going to introduce herself.
Hi y'all, thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Rory Godek. I use she/they pronouns. I'm a second-year undergraduate student studying sociology and global studies, and I have had the immense pleasure of being this event's student director this year. Intertwined is a project with Prevention Services and the Dean of Students, the Office of the Dean of Students. We recognize that a key part of creating a healthy and safe campus environment is a sense of belonging and connection. And especially now, I think we can all appreciate the true importance of coming together coming together in our human experience and witnessing and seeing one another.
So we have 8 storytellers who are going to be sharing stories with you, plus a poet and a brilliant musician, and the storytellers are from all over campus. We have students and undergraduate students and staff members, and it really took a community coming together to create this event, and now with all of you, we're creating an even bigger community. And Intertwined is not only a storytelling event, but it's also a listening event. And so we really are going to be relying on all of you to share and witness these stories. And we're actually going to warm up a little bit in doing that. We're going to do a little activity where we're going to be sharing a story with a partner. Just about 30 to 60 seconds. You're going to find someone in the room, perhaps someone you don't know yet, and share about something that you have found, either recently or long ago, something you've found. So we're going to partner up. You're going to have one person is going to go first, and they're going to share, and the other person is just going to listen, and then at the end of the time, they will reflect back some of the things that they've heard. So I'm going to give you key time to do that. So we'll go ahead and find a partner.
Yeah, I'll talk to Dan. You find a partner over there. Hello. Hello. Would you like
and
to
then
start?
choose someone to go first.
I'll go first. No worries.
Thank you.
And the first person is going to share their story for about 60 seconds. So share a story of something that you found.
So, just before the pandemic, we got a PS4. And we've had like an Xbox 360, and I had a PC. I grew up with a PC gaming, but I've never really console games before. So we bought a PS4, and I got Skyrim. and I immediately fell in love. And that was how I started console gaming. And now I am an avid gamer. I've completed Skyrim more hours than I would like to admit. I've completed Horizon Zero Dawn. I've completed, we played Diablo 3 together. There's so many games, all the Lego games that we've completed. And I just never would have known that it was such an important part of my life. If you hadn't found the opportunity to do that. And part of the opportunity was getting laid off. And I was without a job, and I was like, I need to take time for me. And
so take a moment to wrap up your story.
Thank you.
Storytellers can wrap up your story. And then the listeners are going to reflect back what you heard.
But yes, reflect back what you heard.
Talking about what she said.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So all the games you mentioned, the ones that are blast, those are the ones that you said. Because Skyrim is the biggest and coolest game ever. The hours that you don't want to mention, wildly familiar. And the Lego games that people want because they are for children, and sometimes I want to be a child.
Oh my god, they're amazing. They're so good.
It's challenging, and you have to figure out how to lift the robot with the right hand.
And now you can switch and have the person that was telling their story listen, and the person that was listening share a story of something you found.
Something that I found is growing up, I never really understood. My mom's terrified of water, my dad's terrified of water. And I was working as a forklift driver for a company that makes boats. And so part of that job throughout the team was to install them in the lakes in Washington. And in a passing conversation with the supervisor of that team, he says, "You know how to swim?" I said, "Yes." And first day on the job, didn't go great. Got certified as a scuba diver. Found out I'm flying in the water. I freeze. Because there's I found out that I move very well in the water, and I can understand it. The mechanics are on my face. With full anxiety attacks, could not handle it, freaking out, getting out of the water. Screw it. So, but with that sense of control.
And now, listeners, please share back what you heard.
Well, so it's so interesting that you shared that you never learned how to swim, especially because your mother was a part of the team. But when you had to be asked, do you swim, your answer was automatically yes. And that you discovered that when you could breathe underwater using the scuba equipment, it was like you had always been there. You felt comfortable, you were able to alleviate a lot of that pain under the water and move very comfortably. And that sounds awesome.
It was quite the learning experience.
Take a moment to wrap up the exercise.
No, that's fabulous. So glad we shared those stories.
Yeah.
How long are you folks going to stick around in here, do you think? For a while?
We've talked about going different places, and it always comes back to
All right, let's come back together.
Until December, that's our release.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you so much for participating. It's really important to get the audience involved with our event. I would like to take this space and time to acknowledge that some of our stories today do include topics that can elicit trauma responses in those who have experienced them. We encourage you to lean in with curiosity and compassion while also taking really good care of yourself. Our storytellers are courageously sharing their stories with you tonight, and so we invite you to lean into any discomfort that you might feel in order to accumulate a sense of belonging, connection, and growth in our community.
Just a little bit of housekeeping. The bathrooms are down the hallway to the right. We are going to have a 10-minute intermission. And now I would like to introduce Mia Vance, an award-winning poet and the valedictorian of the English class of 2022.
Woo!
Hope. You can taste it in the salt of the lips licked just before the kiss, the deep breath in before the birthday wish. It hangs in the air with the exhale and the smoke. On a clear day, you can see it spread on the horizon, the slightest hint of gold, long before you see the sun. It's the light at the end of the tunnel and the breath you hold in till you get there. You can hear it in each footstep that falls on your front porch, in each ring as you wait for the call to connect, and between every beep in the hospital room. One time, we found it in a jam jar in Grandma's kitchen cabinet. Another time, tucked between the paperbacks on a dusty bookshop shelf. I've stuck it in the ground with every seed I've ever planted, and sometimes, on the good days, I can find it in myself. It's there, in your first hint of hair after chemo, and the pregnancy test on the edge of your sink while it takes its time making its mind up. And I swear it was there in your eyes just now, a tiny spark, like the phosphorus flare of an unstruck match just before it lights a flame.
Truly good friends can make you feel normal in the most bizarre scenarios, or bizarre in the most normal. My friend Rob, who I've known since we were sweaty little runs causing trouble in church every Sunday or arguing over whose Italian mom was more harsh, has long been that kind of friend. Now, back in the summer of 2020, a lot of the nation felt lost, confused. You know what was going on. It sounded something like Ovid. And much like the Roman author Ovid's great work, it was a time of metamorphosis. People were frantic, cooped up inside with time to think and reflect and metamorphosize. And I'd lost myself quite a bit when quarantine sent me back home to Jersey, cutting short my first year in Oregon. I started working the same old job on the Atlantic City Boardwalk. It was 80-hour weeks and a humid hellscape of tourists, sunburn, and way too much hair gel. I needed enough money to get back to Oregon, and brown-nosing inebriated East Coast tourists just seemed like the best way to do so. So I made plans with my friend Rob, and we'd have our great American adventure. He was easily convinced to do so. Before I knew it, it was time for me to go again. My parents were even selling the house in which I'd grown up, where the backyard bamboo had long been a summer safe haven. I felt at peace there, almost protected, but the bamboo was gone then, and it was time for me to go too, to change. Now, ironically enough, working in the bar had already torn up my hands so much that my futuristic cell phone could no longer even recognize my fingerprints. So I'd begun my metamorphosis, and I met Rob at his spot on top of a barn in Pennsylvania. We took to the road in the early mornings across I-80's endless, wondrous vistas of bumpy grass. We gorged on gas station sausages and fast food, stopped in dingy motels and popped Pepto-Bismol like a daily vitamin. Just leaving a blaze of glory and body odor behind us. We decided, honestly, that we should be allowed to speed if we have to pee. And on the road, we saw more cars than people, and the people all just watching the hood of the car swallow the road ahead of it in a meditative state of highway madness, stopping only to refill themselves or their vehicles. We had to pay to stop. We had to pay to keep going. It's a free country, and nothing at all is really free. Now in Nebraska, we saw this a little bit more when Rob tried to barter over a heavy raincoat, and he got ripped off quicker than the sales tag. Now nobody needs a heavy raincoat in August. He just wanted it. So, wanted something to commemorate the moment. Because capitalism was our nationalism. We were American individualists, and it was lonely, but we were together. So we tasted a little bit of our home country, and I think we got a little bit more around the Mormon wonderland of Salt Lake City. At a high mountain at Great Salt Lake, at the opening to a path, a passerby told us about a dead buffalo in the distance. And us Jersey boys just had to go, climb over piles of boulders, wade through the heat, and slide down the rocks, just to go leer at a poor carcass. When we got there, its stained white ribs were poking through an open cavity in its dried and leathery chest. It was sprawled out and swarmed by flies, but somehow our eyes felt more intrusive. It was the Wild West. We were not wild. And it was right around then we realized that we were pretty stranded. There was no way back over the rocks we had come, and we thought it quite biblical. So we did a pilgrimage or whatever. We were dripping wet, mouths like sandpaper and legs like wet noodles. We're taking a long way around the mountain. Rob was breathing like a steam engine, red in the face like a blushing tomato, and I couldn't breathe either because I was so busy laughing at him. And that got him laughing, giggling, and we just went on like that, just giggling through the terror. And somehow, after over an hour, we got back to the car where we chugged the unsatisfactory warm water in a dazed vehemence. We got in and rolled back down the mountain, just cherishing the cool air billowing through the windows. It felt like victory. We didn't say any words. We didn't really have to. We just kept laughing. It was quiet at first, then in a cackle. Everything seemed funny. Back in Salt Lake City, the preteens were hostile. The gun stores had such wonderful names as Get Some. So we just kept laughing up until we made our last stop in Utah at a gas station. In the dirty, defaced bathroom, I gazed into a foggy mirror. All I saw was an ugly American, a tourist in my home country. I couldn't help but think of home. Couldn't help but think of the bamboo, my safe space where I felt protected. Now, when we removed the bamboo, we had to kill the roots so that it would never grow back. Memory works much the same. When I moved, I tried to destroy the roots of my memories, but they grew back quickly. And I realized that I would have to make my new home with these memories. One new experience, one good friend, one metamorphosis at a time. It wasn't quite Ovid, but Rome wasn't built in a day, so whatever, I went with it. Going back to the car, I looked at Rob. He looked at me. We both knew the other person was a complete maniac. If anything, we were just glad to be bizarre, but still somehow understood. It almost made us feel normal. It almost made us feel at home. Thank you.
Always loved Disney movies. The ones like The Little Mermaid and Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and Beauty and the Beast. Those ones that little kids in the 90s grew up memorizing every single word of and every single lyric to the songs of. I loved these movies because they helped me explore new places, and I loved exploring. I used to pretend to be Ariel, whether I was swimming in the bathtub, or the lake, or the swimming pool, or really anywhere where there would be standing water. I was a really expressive child, and I wanted to be a singer and a mermaid all at once. Not possible. I'm sure pretty much all of you know the story of Cinderella, that story with the evil stepmother, and all the singing and the scrubbing and the crying and the hopelessness. Well, I didn't have to pretend to be Cinderella because when I was about 7 years old, my ability to be anyone else but the perfect princess was taken away. I am 8 years old, and my favorite thing to drink is grape soda. I'm visiting my new stepmother at her apartment, and the carpets are powder blue, and the furniture is untouched. It feels stiff and restricted, like no one lives there, and I'm not supposed to be there. And then I hear the can tip over, and the grape soda is all over the powder blue carpet. And it's in that moment that I learned mistakes are not okay anymore. My stepmother was smart and this beautiful, well-respected community leader. She had amazing teeth, perfect teeth. She had this seemingly infinite body of knowledge on dogs, and she made killer mac and cheese. She was smart and savvy and interesting and exciting and just the life of the party. And yet she was as cruel to me as she was sweet to strangers. And this was really confusing to me because how is it that I can enjoy the same person who hurts me? For years, I thought I was losing my mind. I am 12 years old. My stepmother is sitting in the driver's seat, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and we're sitting at a stoplight, and an older man walks down the sidewalk. I make a rude comment about his appearance because I'm 12. And I kind of forget about it because nothing happens until months later when my stepmother decides to punish me for it by yelling in my face about it, about how much I disrespected this man, and most importantly, how I disrespected her. And this was really confusing because it didn't make any sense. And it was in this moment that I realized no one was here for me. No one was going to rescue me. I became the perfect princess that my stepmother wanted of me. I was quiet. I didn't make a fuss about anything whatsoever. I did well in school, so those expectations of perfection just followed me everywhere. I lost my sense of agency because I had to ask permission to take a shower, to make myself food, to go outside, to exist. And my sanity depended on my ability to follow those rules, to be obedient. I had to fit into the perfect mold, my stepmother's perfect mold of what a little girl should be. And in that, I lost sight of my own personality because I lived in someone else's. I am 18 years old. I realized and I've accepted that no one is coming by with the pumpkin carriage, coming to take me away from the person who's hurting me. So I decided, I have to do this. I have to do it myself. And so I use the magic of the internet to illuminate these things that I previously did not know. And in that, I became my own fairy godmother. I find these terms like manipulation, parentification, gaslighting, projection, and I realized that I was hypervigilant for years, and that was masking. I start going back in time and revisiting experiences and putting this new frame of reference around these experiences, understanding them. And I realized in doing this that it was my own happiness that was most important. Yeah, my own happiness was most important, and that I had become a doormat after years of these experiences. And this is the hardest part of my story. In reframing these experiences, I find this new strength that pushes me to leave this person behind. And in doing so, I realize how awesome it is to be me.
Yes.
I'm 26 years old. I don't have a stepmother anymore. The Disney loving child is still here, but a little bit different. She doesn't dance around the backyard anymore. Working on it. But she also doesn't compromise who she is for other people. And now when I see other people who are struggling with a person who hurts them when no one is looking, I feel compelled to offer them the same magic that I gave myself so that they can become their own fairy godmother. Thank you.
I'm choosing to sit with y'all today, not out of anxiety, but out of a need for emphasis. I believe the ground to be a special place honored best by three groups: children, drunk people, and the neurodivergent. As a kid, I experienced the world through my hands and feet, both of which like to be bare. When I think of the outdoors, it's not the visuals that come to my head, it's the textures. The feeling of the feeling of dew on each soft blade of grass in between my toes, or the warm, rocky touch of asphalt on my hands. The ground was the best place to experience that, and as a kid I adored the ground. More specifically, I loved to crawl. I would often pretend to be some kind of animal, my favorite being a cat, but sometimes I wasn't pretending to be anything at all. The human version of me was just as keen on being on all fours. There were kids who would tease me for this behavior, but it never really bothered me. I tended to turn a blind eye to the judgment of others. Eventually, kids are expected to rise from the ground and walk for the rest of their lives. By the time we hit middle school, my peers had followed that path, leaving me behind on the grass. I held on for a little bit longer, content in experiencing the ground on my own, but I wasn't immune to the desires for friendship. When I finally raised myself from the ground, I entered a reality that felt like falling asleep. Without the ability to feel the world with my hands, I entered a dormant state. About a year later, I discovered I was autistic, researching disorders for a friend. As a neurological disability, autism affects every part of me. It's not bad like many may think, just different, and society's not a fan of different. One big trait related to autism is the need for sensory stimulation in order to focus, de-stress, or express emotions. For example, when I stopped crawling, I began to hide my hands in the sleeves of my hoodies and chew on the fabric. The feeling of dry, soft cotton replaced the many stimulating textures I used to get from the ground. However, that's just one trait of many. It could take a whole lifetime to explore all of my autistic traits, especially since I grew to mask those traits in order to blend in with my neurotypical peers. And that's exactly what I was doing when I stopped crawling. In this sleep-like state I was in, I forgot all about how the ground used to call my name. Every once in a while, there was something that would almost wake me up. I would be sitting in the grass with friends, and I would dig my fingernails into the ground, and I would almost find myself again, but the moment always ended too soon. On my best friend's birthday, She got drunk and started gravitating towards the ground as drunk people often do. In another universe, I would have joined her, and that would have been the moment I remembered the joys of being on all fours. Instead, I dragged her back up to my level and laughed it off. I wouldn't think about crawling again until about a year ago. I was in bed, scrolling through TikTok, and after most likely a lot of cat videos, I discovered someone who wanted to learn how to crawl really fast. I thought the idea was funny. I even considered doing it myself, but I didn't dwell on it for very long. However, when I went to bed that night, it was like I had truly awoken. From then on, in nearly all of my dreams, I was crawling. It was never the focus, just something as natural as walking. I would be late for class, galloping on all fours in desperation. I would be hanging out with friends, then walking beside my crawling form without question. And in all those dreams, I felt more awake than I ever did walking in the public eye. So, while my roommate was away, I finally placed my hands and feet on the ground and crawled around my small dorm room. I felt the rough carpet gently scratch against my palms, and the smooth vinyl flooring cool the pads of my fingers. I hopped and prowled and ran, and I was awake again, feeling the world in the way that I was made to. When it was all done, I sat in the middle of the room and let both the dopamine and disappointment sink in. Getting to crawl again brought back that sensory stimulation I'd been unknowingly craving for years. However, I was confined to the textures of my small dorm room. I wouldn't feel the soft grass or the warm asphalt, and more importantly, I wouldn't have people by my side like I did when I was dreaming. The world was not made for those who crawl, and if you think it's weird that I've been lamenting over my inability to walk on all fours in public, let me make something abundantly clear. That is autism. It's the constant scrutiny over everything you do, the invalidation over everything you think, and the vilification of a disability that wouldn't be so disabling if people learned to be a little more accommodating. So, if I ever decide to break the rules, if you see me crawling in the grass, turning a blind eye to anyone who dares judge me, then remember this. In a world built for the neurotypical, being autistic is an act of defiance we do not choose to make. In a world built for those who walk, I choose to crawl. Thank you.
My family and I used to travel all the time, but my favorite part of these trips was visiting college campuses. I remember one time when I was 12 years old, my dad and I were sneaking through UCLA when we found an open lecture hall. Walking in, I felt at home in the empty classroom, surrounded by dreams of sitting in a chair with a flimsy desk, scribbling down notes in a notebook, raising my hand to add to the professor's discussion. I was hooked. So after the trip, I made a 6-year step-by-step plan. First, register for honor and AP courses. Second, join as many extracurriculars as I could. And finally, graduate and go to the school of my dreams. So, I prayed to Ganesha, the Hindu deity of removing obstacles, for my obstacles to be removed, and proceeded. Now, it was hard. I mean, I know it wasn't going to be easy, but it would be worth it. The pressure, the hair pulling, the intense headaches would all be worth it. The countless fights my parents had about finances and old arguments would all be worth it. The depression and anxieties I wore like an old baggy sweater would come off, and it would all be worth it. Thrilled, beaten, relieved, tired. I completed my plan in only 5 years. Graduating high school a year early with a 4.2 GPA, president of math and triathlon club, a runner for the cross-country team, and so much more. I had done it. When I first came to Eugene for my tour of UO, I fell in love with the saturated green campus, the smell of fresh earth, and the food in this building literally solidified my decision to come here. No joke. Everything looked and felt exactly as it should. So, I made a new plan. First, make friends and go on adventures. Second, join some clubs, have fun. Third, study abroad, get an internship. And finally, graduate. I still remember my first class. It was Econ 202 and PLC 180 with Mike Urbancic. I have so many stories now about late night insomnia runs and Sunday brunches in Carson with friends. I was doing well in school. I was planning on studying abroad in London, and I had finally felt like I had found where I belonged. Then came March of 2020. COVID had been a thing in the news, a distant plague on humanity. But in March, it was real, very real. We were told to pack up our dorms and go home. I was heartbroken. It felt like the rug I had crafted with my own blood, sweat, and tears had been ripped right out from under me. And this loss consumed me. The trips I had planned with friends, laying on the EMU green in spring, opportunities and experiences I will never know about, all gone, with the empty promises of returning to school. But loss has a process. Anger and denial are a part of it. And coming back to in-person classes, I wanted it to be as it was. And when it wasn't, and this need for what was, just made depression hold me like a spell. Until my parents came in March. My mom said, everything's gonna be okay, as long as you're happy. My dad said, stop living for different times. This is your present. So, slowly, I allowed myself to be guided by the present. I let go of the expectations I had for myself, for college, all of it. I let go of planning for the future. It's always changing anyway. I let go of looking at obstacles as obstacles, but rather as a path to guide me through the uncertainty of life until acceptance finally came. And I mean, it worked. I am a storyteller for Intertwined. Woo! I'm the president of Econ Club. I'm a newly elected vice chair and board member for Augsburg. I'm a tutor for student athletes. I am an econ major, minoring in sustainable business and comparative literature. I am where I am now, standing on this stage, able to honestly say I am living for the present, not the future, because of the obstacles in my life. Now, I may not be able to complete most of my planned college experiences, but I did get some unique new ones, like weekly COVID nasal swabs. So, I I pray to Ganesha, the Hindu deity of removing obstacles. Not for my obstacles to be removed, but to be easier. Because I know that obstacles mean you have found the right path. Thank you.
There will now be a 10-minute intermission.
There is a Brazilian Portuguese word for the tender running of fingers through your lover's hair. A word in Japanese for the scattered light that shines when the sun is filtered through forest. I hear the Irish have a word for a person who tends to the garden in spite of bad weather. In Thailand, a word for not wanting to ask for a favor because you know it will burden your friend, and they will agree to it anyway. And I know for a fact that there is a word for the idea you get when you're drunk that you're sure to regret when you're sober. And yes, it is German. So there must be a word for the frustration you feel when the camera in your hand can't capture the moon half as beautiful as your own eyes can. A word in Irish for long goodbyes at the end of the night, clumped in the doorway, coats on, bags in hand, not quite ready to go just yet. I'm sure there's a word in German for pulling a pin out of hair that hasn't been pinned up in days. What is the French word for forgetting to bathe or eat? For letting yourself bloat and grow filthy with love or with grief? There must be a word in Japanese for a beautiful view from a hospital room. There's got to be a word somewhere for the ache of waking up alone in the bed you've always shared, for making dinner for 2 instead of 3, coffee for 1 instead of 2. There must be a word for wishing it had been me instead of you, but I do not know it. I couldn't pronounce it if I did. But I'd try. I'd lie awake nights and repeat it to myself. But tonight, it just sounds like your name. Your name. Your name.
My father died 6 years ago. He was born in India and grew up poor, but things changed after immigrating to the States. He became a successful doctor. During the second half of his life, he made up for lost time and bought a lot of stuff. Dad filled our house with books, stamps, garden tools, art. Honestly, his taste was Mom thought most of it was junk, and I kind of agreed. The coin collection was the exception. Dad kept his coins in a cramped, windowless, and locked room. As a kid, I occasionally snuck in there, but I never stayed long. Dad was very, very strict, and my fear of getting caught was intense. Still, I remember so very well those moments sitting on the floor amongst his dusty stamp albums and the ivory carvings that he had collected from far-flung travels. Sifting through drawers and boxes and yellowed envelopes, I discovered coins with silver mined from the Comstock lode. He had a 1793 penny that was almost certainly once used by Benjamin Franklin. Once I found a solid gold Spanish doubloon, minted in 1586. I never told anybody about Dad's semi-secret treasure. For me, it was fun being the only one who really knew what was in there. A few months after Dad's memorial service, I flew back to Albuquerque, this time to help Mom downsize and move to an assisted living facility. I remember she called me a few days before the trip, and she said, holy shit. You're not going to believe all the coins I found in Dad's safe deposit box. For the first time in years, I was excited to go home. Turns out Dad had hundreds of coins that even I did not know about. My mom was totally overwhelmed and annoyed by the growing list of things she was going to have to sell. I wanted some more time with the coins, actually, so I offered to handle it for her. I packed them up into 2 duffel bags, and then I remember thinking, I can't take these through airport security. TSA is going to confiscate these. So I rented a car and drove those coins back to Eugene. I had no idea at the time that those 2 duffel bags sitting on the passenger seat next to me were worth more than what my wife and I paid for our house. Soon after I arrived back in Eugene, my son and I made a detailed inventory of Dad's coins. We literally spent hundreds of hours poring over each and every one with a magnifying glass and then going and looking them up on the internet. Most were run-of-the-mill, quite honestly, but our hearts would pound in our chests at that moment when we realized we just found a super rare or valuable or really interesting coin. And then, of course, we'd go and run to find my wife and daughter and tell them about our latest discovery. My favorite coin dates back to the Puritans. In the 1650s, the Massachusetts Bay Colony was a really bustling place. There were 20,000 inhabitants. But leaders were frustrated with the lack of hard currency needed to facilitate daily business. So in 1652, just after King Charles was beheaded, those rebellious colonists built an illegal mint and began striking their own coins. It was super successful, and those coins spread all throughout the colonies. They kept at it for more than 20 years. But interestingly, they stamped the year 1652 on each and every one of those coins, no matter what year they were actually made in. Why? Well, if they got caught, they could claim falsely that they only made those coins during the 1 year when there was no king. Today, even a poorly preserved colonial shilling can be worth more than $5,000. Dad had 2. I've already sold 1. I like to put the other one out on the Thanksgiving table. We also found receipts tucked into those boxes. One of those 1652 shillings arrived by mail at our house on a Tuesday in October 1986. My family probably had dinner together that night, and like most nights, conversation would have been sparse. Dad often did not say a word. After dinner, he would get up, get the mail, go to his office, and close the door. He wanted us to think he was working hard, paying bills, getting ready for the next day's surgeries, and he probably was, no question in my mind he was. But I now know he also spent at least some of that time opening up those small, precious packages and quietly enjoying his latest acquisition. While I was watching TV that night, Dad was on the other side of that wall, marveling at a coin that could have once been held by somebody who sailed across the ocean on the Mayflower. Surely he knew, that I would have loved to look at them too. But like so much else, he chose not to share them. And that's the part I find so hard to understand and accept. Why couldn't he open that door and invite me in? It's too late to improve my relationship with my father, and I can't keep the coins much longer either. It's time for me to let go. Enter the regional coin show. If you have not been to one, I really encourage you to attend. I love them. I really love them. They're held in unpretentious locations like county fairgrounds or the showrooms of budget hotels. Few people attend, and honestly, that's okay. It's mostly lonesome graybeards whose passion for coins I now share. They watch over their own small fortunes, eager to talk and trade. I have become become a regular, I'll travel 100 miles just to attend. My pockets will be filled with the coins that Dad spent decades collecting. I'm there to sell the coins, but there's more at stake for me than just building Mom's nest egg. Walking up and down the aisles, I have come to realize I'm looking for father figures. I like these gruff war horses. I love showing them Dad's best coins, and I really like it when they tell me things about the coins that I cannot find online. There's one old-timer who I have befriended since Dad passed. I'll wait while he finishes up his business, and when things quiet down, he'll smile and wave me over. And then we do the thing I wished I could have done with my father. We sit down and we share the things that make us happy. Thank you.
We burned Alex Tate's pillow at the end of the summer. When it burned, it gave off a thick, black column of smoke. Acrid, poisonous. Against the clear afternoon sky, there's no way no one saw it. I should back up. Alex was a camper at a summer camp, where I was a summer camp counselor. It was 3 of us in the oak cabin at the time, Nate and James and me. Oak is where we had the end of season staff party, so the 3 of us were in charge of cleaning it up, packing it up, and moving out. Mostly we were drinking warm beers to wash down the morning. Meanwhile, our co-workers were doing the important tasks of cleaning up the camp. When we took the pillow to the old tent city to burn it, we could hear them at the pool and at the archery range being productive. These were people that we'd looked up to, people who not so long ago were responsible for us, who were supposed to care about us. How did none of them see the smoke? Why didn't anyone check on us? Coworkers is a weird term, really. It was a little family we found out there. We ate together, sharing meals in the dining hall and at the on-duty table in the staff lounge. We bathed together, passing soaps under shower stalls, and we mourned together, mourned for Ruth when her son Scott died. Ruth O'Brien, who brought in donuts to the staff meeting when everybody was hungover from the staff party, who put some of us up in her home when we needed it most, who took out the death of her son on her still living adoptive children, who made us a family and taught us we shouldn't have been one. None of that's why we burned the pillow. That was boredom. It was probably the beers. We liked Alex. He was a good kid. But maybe after all the years spent out there together, all of the things that family manages to hide, maybe the smoke was the call for help we weren't ready to vocalize. We got a small flame going, quickly catching the edges of the pillow first. As it grew, it took on a life of its own, sending its column of smoke spiraling into the wind, emitting its noxious odor. Not that I had much of a sense of smell even in those days, but I knew enough to know it was toxic. Without a word, the 3 of us took a step back from the flame, but not so far we couldn't see what was happening. The smiling face and have a nice day slogan were reduced to unrecognizable mush. I wondered if I should go get water. Years of proper fire safety training gone in the rush to destroy a child's throw pillow. I wasn't much in the habit of caring about my own safety in those days, but I cared about the camp, about the people there. Why didn't I get water for them? I stood and I watched as the flame grew higher and hotter, bits of it crumbling away to disintegrate by themselves, scattering from the heart of the thing to disintegrate in lonely plastic puddles. I wonder now if any of the great many things I lost out there met a similar fate. I know for a fact that some of the people I found there did. The core burned out, the flame died down, bits of it lay smoldering around the edge of the fire pit, and still the smoke rising against the sky. As we walked back to the cabin to get on with the rest of our day, Julian stopped us. Julian had been my mentor and a good friend to all three of us for years. Julian taught me everything I know about the outdoors, about how to forage for herbs and flowers to make tea, about which leaves to infuse with gin to make it drinkable, about proper fire safety, about being a good person. Julian asked me what was wrong. Julian had seen the smoke. It wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. And I told him nothing and got back to cleaning the cabin. Thank you.
I grew up in the same house until I was 17. Different parts of me lived in different spaces. My child self, a young girl full of life and sound, lived on the paths through the trees in my backyard. She lived in the damp grass, in the creek beds, and in the tall branches. My teenage self, a young boy, quiet and hurting, lived in my bedroom almost solely. He spent many hours hiding away from life in the little reading nook. Let's go back there, back before I lost them. First, let's go back to her. The sun dances out of my memory and through the leaves of the trees above. The ground is soft with moss and sharp with pine needles. It is not quiet. Every bird song I can remember is echoing through the forest. Maybe one day I'll be able to name them all, but right now, naming and labeling and filing away feels out of place. There are no rules in the forest and no one there to enforce them. Just me, not alone at all. This is where she was, curious and free. Now let's go back to him. In my childhood bedroom, I lay on the floor at night, contemplating if cutting my flesh would let me bleed out my pain and choking claustrophobia. The day is long, too long, the nights are longer, and the carpet is itchy on my back, but my lungs are itchier. Her softness scared him, and her joy mocked him. He needed to kill her, and so he did. And this is where he was, in between waves of anxiety and pits of depression, nestled in the arms of dysphoria. Not too long ago, I realized I felt empty, not depressed or sad, but like whole parts of me had been cut out. The grief hit me all at once. The emptiness, once I acknowledged it, swelled up larger than life. A single deep truth reverberated from the hollow of my chest. I must find myself again. And so I began to search. I found her first ever joyous and loud and excitable. She was locked in this self-inflicted prison. I'm no longer panicked like he was, so I took her hand and I led her out of the dark. I apologized for pushing her away whenever I felt her presence, for thinking that in order to survive, I had to erase her completely. She stands beside me now, encouraging me, so I take her hand and I sing to her. I will run through the fields and the woods for you, not like something is chasing me, but like I'm chasing life. I'll dance away the blue jays for you, pet every dog I see for you, jump in puddles for you, and live and breathe with you as my guide. I will learn not from the teachers or the parents or the elders. I will learn from the children, from you. It took me longer to find him. He was quiet and reclusive and didn't mind being left behind. He thought it would be better if I ignored his part in my story. His experiences are painful to remember. Images like thorns when I found my old journal and read what he wrote there. But despite this pain, he is a part of me and I need him to be whole. So I took his hand and I apologized to him too, but I promised him. Every kind word, every comforting sweater, every ounce of grace I extend to myself, it is all in dedication to you. Everything you couldn't do for yourself back then, I will do for you now. And it is hard, so hard. But it will get better and you will be okay. I know, because we made it out a little bit every day. And here they stand with me up on this stage. I dug them out of their early grave. And here they stand with me up on stage. I planted their feet in soil, fertilized with hours of therapy and journaling, and finally getting out of my hometown. And now here I stand, holding both their hands. They are a part of me, and losing them meant losing myself.
You really shouldn't eat that. Do you know what it will do to your body? No one will ever love you if you look like you used to. You're nothing if not perfect. I avert my eyes from the burger section of the menu and adjust them to peruse the salads. May I have a Caesar salad, light dressing, and no croutons, please? I'm 13, and this is my first recollection of when my eating disorder, or as I now name it, Evedale, and I became acquainted. My days developed into a routine of restriction, exercise routines motivated by self-hatred, and scouring my social media feeds. I grew more and more disgusted with my body at every Photoshop picture, every daily step onto that scale, every workout. That never felt like enough. I was a willing servant of my mind who faithfully strived for the unobtainable approval from Eve. In the process of molding myself into the most beautiful and flawless person I could be, I lost my unapologetically weird personality. I was a weird kid. My motivation for school, my ability to do the things that I loved, and my weight, until my parents could no longer blame it on a phase, and I landed in an exam room being diagnosed with anorexia nervosa. Don't do it. Don't you dare eat the food on that plate. Everything you have ever worked for is on the line. They don't know what they're talking about. Your parents and doctors are full of shit. Shit. The thoughts are extra loud today. Eve is pissed at me. I have been compliant with the rules imposed by the partial hospitalization program I had been admitted into for the second time that year. And Eve, well, she wasn't happy about it. It's mealtime. Myself and the other patients shuffle to the dining room. Fidget toys and little notes of encouragement litter the tables. You are enough just the way you are. A number on the scale does not define you. You are worthy of love. I roll my eyes and look at a note near my spot. The happy, forgetful blue fish from Finding Nemo, Dory, sings the words in my head. Just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. How do I swim when I'm constantly drowning and flailing, though? The timer starts, the games begin. The darting eyes of comparison amongst the patients fly underneath the therapist's notice. I pick up my sandwich, take a bite, and swallow. Immediately bombarded with assaults of fury and disappointment. My head feels like it's going to burst as thoughts of myself, Eve, and my parents fight a brutal war inside. Awful and nasty harassments scream at me from Eve. Worried whispers of my parents' love and support punch through me. Panic, exhaustion, hopelessness, and bitterness seep inside. I struggle to form objections to their accusations, and my head burst. Well, not actually, but I did lose the battle. My refusal to eat landed an NG tube down my nose and throat. The embarrassment of my defeat, visible for all to see, sunk deeper within to a disguised loss of my will to live. It would just be so much easier if I wasn't here anymore. I would no longer be a burden to my parents or siblings. I would no longer wreck myself at every imperfection with my actions, my words, my entire self. What if I just wasn't here anymore? Who would even miss me? What the fuck am I doing? How can I just sit here and let my brain torment me day in and day out? I have one life and so many dreams. Why am I wasting all of that on the impossible goal of perfection? I'm startled. This is new. This is not the familiar menacing voice of Eve. I vaguely recognize it, but can't really place it. It's refreshing though, like a breath of crisp wintry air, the kind that gives you goosebumps. I cling on to the first hopeful thoughts I have had in far too long. Maybe, just maybe, all the hours of therapy are actually doing their job? Maybe the exercises in reworking my hateful self-directed reprimands, the assertive communication practices, the mindfulness lessons, the relapse prevention sessions are actually working? Maybe. Just maybe, it was Eve who sucked all the passion, capability, and energy from my body so they could thrive like a parasite. Maybe this moment is the shift. Have I just found a glimpse of my old self? I am enough. I am capable. I am worthy. I am loved. The positive affirmations I had once so abhorred now begin my everyday. I would love to say that ever since I was reunited with my old self, it has been smooth sailing. But, as with most things, the work has never ended. I still fall victim to society's harmful and unrealistic beauty standards and to a cycle of beratement and negativity. But, even on my days of struggle, I never let it completely embody me as it once did. I am a person in chronic recovery who will always strive to appreciate my body despite its natural inclination to harm it. The toxicity of today's standards led me down a path where I lost my way and almost myself. With some weed whacking, some bruises and stings, I cleared a new path for myself. But it is not one just for me. I know I am not alone. This is a journey I tread with others' hands intertwined with mine. You are so much more than enough. You are incredibly capable. You are so worthy. And you are loved by so many. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here. Oh, could somebody pass me one of those programs? I want to make sure I thank everyone. First of all, I want to give a special thanks to Colin Vance. Who has been with Intertwined for the past 6 years. Yeah. And also to Mia Vance, thank you so much. Very special thanks to the story coaches who have been working for the last 6 or 7 weeks with the storytellers, Alexis and Anna, Bailey, Eric, Emily, Jessica, Martha, Rachel. Special thanks to Jessica Ruth Baker and the Very Little Theater for live streaming tonight. Sarah Blanchard and Sarah, I always pronounce your name wrong, Stuckel? Good enough. For serving on the planning committee. Extra special, amazing thanks to Rory for pulling it all together.
Thanks to Abigail Luder.
So we will be doing this all again tomorrow night. So please do tell your friends. We would love to have a full house. It's really lovely to have you all here. And if you're interested in getting involved next year, our blog information is here on the program. So please stay home. Again, thank you so much for your time. Woo!